Ladies and gentlemen, the courtroom. This is Judge 22 Tiger Dude. And don't forget that I am the law. I am the law. Hello everybody, this is 22 Tiger Dude here, and I'm here to review The Judge. So, The Judge stars Robert Downey Jr., Robert Duvall, Vera Farmiga, and Billy Bob Thornton. So this movie is about Hank Palmer, played by Robert Downey Jr. He's just a lawyer that pretty much doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care about if his clients are innocent or guilty unless they can't afford him. Then it's a problem for him. Then one day he gets a phone call about how his mother passes away. So Robert Downey Jr. goes back to his hometown to go to his mother's funeral. And of course, he sees his family that he hasn't seen in years. And that is due to the fact that he and his father don't necessarily get along with each other. One day, Hank Palmer's father, played by Robert Duvall, gets into a little situation and it gets him into trouble. So then later on, as the film goes by, Robert Downey Jr. decides to be his representative, and slowly along the way they start to develop a little father-son bond and appreciate one another. Now, I was looking forward to The Judge because I love these actors. The movie looked interesting. In fact, I was hoping it would be one of the best films I've seen this year because the trailer looked that magnificent. So after I saw one of my most anticipated films of this fall, is The Judge one of my favorite movies? No. It's not one of my favorite movies of the year, unfortunately, like I was hoping it would be, because it is a flawed movie. But with that being said, I still thought The Judge is a good and solid movie. All the performances are very good, but the standouts to me are Robert Downey Jr. and Robert Duvall. These two guys were fantastic together. They played off the father-son relationship so well. It's also really cool to see Billy Bob Thornton. It's been a very long time since he's done a movie. I really can't remember the last theatrical release movie he's done, but of course he was fantastic in Fargo. If you guys haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's the FX series, and I just love Fargo, and Billy Bob Thornton, he was fantastic in that show, and I thought he did a really good job for the screen time that he had. My favorite scene involving Billy Bob Thornton, though, is definitely the way him and Robert Downey Jr.'s character would talk to each other back and forth. That really got me interested in the movie. Although, with that being said, he is a bit underused, and I wish he was in the film just a little more. I also thought the actress who played Hank Palmer's daughter, his little girl, she did a really good job. It was too bad she wasn't in the film too much, though, because she was an adorable little girl. But she did a really good job playing the character, and I really enjoyed her character. She brought some of the sweet and heartwarming stuff for the story. The storyline for the film I also thought was always really interesting. You know, this is a 2-hour and 22-minute long movie. Some people complain that it runs a little too long. Me, I was never bored with this film. I never felt the running time once. In fact, coming out of The Judge, I didn't feel like it was 2 hours and 22 minutes. It actually felt like it was just a 1 hour and 40-minute long movie. It felt a lot shorter than that, which is weird. But that's when you know a movie's doing a good job, when an audience member like me is interested in it without even really feeling the running time. It definitely had my interest the whole time in where this whole case is going, but also on the whole family side of things too. And I do think there were some pretty funny moments to this film, I guess, to lighten up the tone a bit, not to get too serious. The courtroom scenes were definitely what I expected. They were definitely very intense. They kept me engrossed. They actually had me shaking. I found them very intense, and just how they were portrayed was very well done, because to me, I'm just all like, oh man, where is this case going? Oh, he's saying this. Oh, he's saying that. Oh my gosh, where is this leading up to? Like, the courtroom scenes are really getting into my head and making me like really invested in what was going on. Now, as I've stated, The Judge isn't a perfect movie. I do have certain flaws with the movie, and one of my flaws with The Judge is actually that the movie does focus a little more on the comedy rather than the drama. I feel like they tried for the comedy way too much, especially when there are times where it tries to be dramatic, something funny happens, and it takes me out of that certain dramatic moment because they try to be funny at the same time, and it does get quite distracting for me. Vera Farmiga, while she does a really good job here, and I did really like her character, she was utterly useless for this movie. I didn't think she added really any importance to the movie. She really didn't do anything that served the purpose for the overall story. Like I said, it was good to see her here. She did a good job, but I just think that there could have been a little more something interesting happening if her character wasn't in here. Also, there's this weird unneeded subplot involving Vera Farmiga and her daughter. It honestly doesn't take away from the main plot though, which is a good thing, and some movies do tend to do that, but luckily The Judge isn't one of those movies. It's only a subplot that lasts for like maybe 2-3 scenes, but I still think that subplot was unnecessary and didn't have to be in the film at all, even though I will admit it was kind of funny. Dax Shepard. He was more useless than Vera Farmiga in this movie. He didn't have to be in this movie, period. He plays Robert Duvall's lawyer, and honestly, there was no point to him even going in the film, because since Robert Downey Jr.'s character is representing Robert Duvall, all Dax Shepard's character does is show up to court, and that's it. And while the cinematography for The Judge does look good, I do think there were a few times where the lighting and the cinematography does get a little bit too bright, and they could have toned it down just a little bit. It really was just a few times though. Overall, while The Judge isn't one of the best movies of the year like I was hoping it would be, it was still a very well made, very well directed, and very well written movie. It was a solid movie that kept my attention with really good performances, especially from Robert Duvall and Robert Downey Jr. So because of that, I'm going to give The Judge a solid 3 out of 4 stars. I am 22 Tiger Dude. Don't forget that I will always have Tiger Power!